Hello, everybody. This is Adamology here in the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area. And on today, I have a special treat for you. We are in Black History Month, and doing Black History Month, there's things that are going on that are just so special. And one of those items I'm going to talk about on tonight. There's a special on the PBS channel called Gospel. This is our song, this is our story. And I have the director, co-producer with us on today. Yes, look at your neighbor and say yes. And so we are so excited to have her with us on today. Her name is Stacey Holmon. She is a filmmaker out of Harlem, New York. She has won several awards for the PBS special she has done. She has served as an associate producer on the Emmy award-winning film Freedom Riders. She also has won from her short films, Dressed Like a King, garnered the Tribeca Film Festival All Access Award, and also aired on the World Channel. She's a powerful lady. This series produced and directed of Henry Gates Jr. Black Church series, The Black Church. This is our story. This is our song. And she's also a graduate of Dillard University and the University of New York. I want you to welcome everybody, my guest, Stacey Holmon.
Hi, thank you, Adamology. Such a pleasure to be here.
When I tell you, you are somebody powerful, somebody special.
Well, thank you. I put you on payroll, as I said.
Let's a lot of people may not know who you are. So please share from your beginnings from Harlem and going to the university. Please share what was that process like?
Well, I originate from Cleveland, Ohio. And From Cleveland, I made my way down to New Orleans and Dillard University. And from there, I continued my education at New York University, where I received my MFA, and also where I still remain in New York. And I've continued to pursue and to do work on some incredible projects, very many of them in the documentary space, and all of them on PBS, which is very, something I've watched growing up. So it's kind of full circle, having work that you do that's airing on a station that you grew up watching.
What was the decision that you made to do documentaries compared to dramas and other things like that? Why documentaries?
Well, ironically, when I left NYU, that was my path. You come out and I've got a great feature script. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then, you plan, God laughs. And I stumbled on an article in the New York Times about a group of South African dandies, and the story resonated with me. And one of my friends challenged me. She's like, well, there's a really positive story you could tell. What would it be? And it was these gentlemen who really identified that, or felt that their self-worth was based on what they wore. And I think most Black men can identify with, like, once you put that suit on, your back straightens up a little bit, your shoulders go back, and you have a little a strut that you only usually get when you're wearing a suit. So I traveled many, many miles across the ocean to South Africa, and that was my journey into documentary storytelling. I mean, I enjoy documentaries. However, I then fell deep into producing and eventually directing. I was directing, but producing, and then series producing, long form series.
One thing I've noticed looking at your series, there is a flow. There's so much depth in the history that you give in the documentaries. How do you do your research? How long does it take to find out all this information, then put it, because I know you probably learn and research so much stuff. How do you condense that to put in a document? Like, what's your process?
Well, that's a great question, and it's hard. When we did the Black Church, that was 400 years in 4 hours, and we started a little bit later for gospel, but still, it was a lot of information that we had to narrow down. And it first starts with the treatment. When myself and the other director, Shayla Harris, when we came on board, Skip, who is Henry Louis Gates, and I'll just call him Skip throughout. He had a treatment, he had the idea. And what we did from there is we began to, there was some research at the top, but it was just kind of a surface to a degree. And then it was our job to just dig deeper. And what that entailed is an incredible group of advisors that came on board, scholars, writers, people who were familiar with, whether the pulpit, people familiar with gospel, the history, and they were helpful in really helping to shape the 4 hours. We always come across or decide, what are the top 10 stories that have to be told for each of the hours, and we then break it down from there. And we have an incredible a lot of incredible people on gospel, including our producers, Chelsea and Eric, who were also instrumental in helping us. Just you're reading a lot, you're outlining a lot, and start from there. Everything starts on paper before you start really going out there interviewing subjects.
Even by tapping into what you just said, the obstacles. What type of obstacles did you run into, or that just happens when you do such a large project like the gospel on PBS? What type of obstacles did you experience?
Documentary filmmaking is a visual medium, and because it's that, you need to have visuals to tell that story, and sometimes you don't have those visuals, and that's hard. You have some incredible stories, and there are several of which end up on the cutting room floor for just the mere fact that there's no, forget about footage. We're talking about 1920s, 1930s. There's not even an image. And if there is an image, it's like a really bad sketch of the artist. So in the case of Arizona Drains, who was before Dorsey, she had a record contract. I mean, there's a few pictures of her, but not many. So it really prevents you from telling that full story. So that was one of the determining things that kind of helped us, or if they helped us, it did help us decide which stories to tell, which stories could we give a full, well enough story. And we don't want to use a lot of, animation. We want to be able to just show the actual person, show them in that space, show them who they are. And there's also just time. It's 53 minutes, and it's jam packed. 20 years, 30 years of history, and that's always hard. There's a lot of darlings that you have to kill.
One thing I love that you did, like you articulated Thomas Dorsey, and how you utilize a photo of him and then had the
Yes. Oh yeah.
audio going. I did like that. To me, that was very authentic because, like you articulated, there wasn't footage then. There wasn't a lot of mediums back then. So I really like the authentic presentation that you gave us in this special. And so, with that being said, how do you make sure things stay authentic, especially when you have individuals that may want to doctor or make things look a certain way, a certain presentation? We don't want the people to think a certain way about what happened back then. How do you keep things so authentic?
Well, I have to, for the Dorsey audio that you're talking about in the film, and even the footage, that's actually from the Dorsey estate, and that was gold. That was just like every filmmaker's just dream, that you find some footage, you find audio find images that no one has ever seen, and no one has ever seen that. So, thankfully we were able to get our hands on it first. And really hear Dorsey reading part of a book that he never finished, see footage of Dorsey that he recorded on his 8mm, camera. And we remain authentic because documentary is truth tellers. It also too, there's a lot of people who know stuff too. So, whether we have advisors who are also looking over our outlines, they're making sure that we have dates right, making sure that we have, the characters right. And I think in terms of just, that's the fact checking and making sure that we keep history accurate. But in terms of the authenticity of it is, the authenticity comes from the images. It comes from those moments. It comes from that audio and those nuances, which I think really helps with the authenticity of whatever story we're telling, whatever moment in history we're sharing.
The project like this, or any of your projects that you have done, how long does it actually take to from beginning to end? How long
Mm-hmm.
does it take?
Well, we're in a very, very special position. A lot of our funding we have, a lot of filmmakers are not, especially in documentary space, are not in that position. That said, we made this film took us like a year and a half.
Mhm.
So it's a quick time, but it's still a lot of time, but it's a very short, it ebbs and flows, but it took us about a year and a half. And I should say what that year and a half included. That included the pre-production, which is the research, the development. Even though we had a treatment, we still had to develop the 4 hours. That includes hiring our team, from our archival team to our music supervisor to our graphics, even to our editors. Then we had the production, which is the actual filming of interviews. The gospel performances is also part of
Mhm.
that. And then you have the post, which is the editing, and that is the composer is brought on, and everything is kind of happening in tandem with each other. And post production then brings us into what you now see on your TVs or computers.
Or computers. 'Cause I know I watched it actually on my tablet.
Yep,
I watched it on my tablet and I
media is
enjoyed it.
great.
Yeah. And one thing for those in this media space that have issues, they have this particular issue, um, from a filmmaker, uh, how would you, or what would you share to a person who's trying to get funding? Because a lot of times it's very difficult to get funding for, especially for projects like this.
Yeah.
Tools, what tools can you share with other filmmakers that are trying to do what you're doing?
Well, I've been on both ends of it. I've been on the end where you get the money, and I've been on the end where it takes, you're getting the money yourself. The advice I would say is be patient. It is a process. There's always the grant route. Those are very competitive, but sometimes if you find or have a subject that's very specific to a cause, very specific to a moment, they may be organizations that can provide some funding there. You can also look in your network. You can find people in your circle that might be able to support you. There's a lot of crowdfunding sites to do that. And then again, it's those foundations, the grants, and that's sometimes what takes the time. And of course, you can find a venture capitalist, but you probably have more luck finding it through the paths that I just mentioned. So patience, patience, patience.
Now, I'm really, really interested in this piece because, especially with this PBS special, Gospel,
Mhm.
can you name 3 moments that really touched you?
Ah, yes. One would be in episode 1, and it was the performance, which we did our own interpretation of. Spoiler alert for anyone who has not seen the series, and maybe this will get you excited to see it. Hopefully, it will get you excited to see it. There is such a thing called the song battles that happened 1930s, 1940s. Dorsey was a part of it, Mahalia Jackson, Sally Martin, a lot of the the legends of gospel were part of it. And it was just what it sounds like. Two singers, quartets would have a sing-off. And there was one in the 1940s, and make sure I get my dates right, or years right. That's I'm saying 40s, between Mahalia Jackson and Rosetta Tharpe. And heaven only knows what that space was like. And unfortunately, there's no audio of that sing-off. So one thing that we did to really kind of talk about, or not talk, to have people really understand and feel gospel. I mean, you can see the archival, but to really hear it, is we created these performances. And there is a performance between Felice and another singer named Alexis, who are embodying Mahalia Jackson and Sister Rosetta Tharpe. So they sing the song Journey to the Sky. And so that is one of the moments that I just replay and replay, not only in my mind, but also I watch it again and again and again. The other moment that is really just makes my heart just smile and just warms it is in episode 2, which is directed by Shayla Harris. And that is the moment where Dr. King is about to approach the podium. He's at the podium, and he's very he's about to speak, and you can tell he's very hesitant. And I won't even dare to kind of use the words that Fredera, one of the scholars, describes that moment. And just as he's about to step to the mic and speak, Mahalia breaks out in this amazing song, Jericho. And you see King smile. How many times have we seen Dr. King smile? Not many, at least I haven't seen, but it's just this beautiful, tender moment where you just see all the trepidation that was first on his face just wash away in this smile. And just, it's also too, just kind of explains why he leaned on her. He called on her in those moments to sing. So that's 2. And number 3 would be Twinkie Clark. Skip sat with her, and that was just seeing a master at work, playing songs like We Can Recite the Alphabet, and just the queen bee of the Hammond bee. So those were the 3 moments that really just moved me.
I have to tell you, I am Church of God in Christ.
Okay.
I'm Kojic. Kojic to the
You're
bone.
Kojic to the core. Kojic to the core, right?
Kojic to the core.
Kojic got a big presence over there on the West Coast. I mean, some incredible talent coming from there.
Yeah, and so with that, I'm curious. Like some of us who are even watching this right now, they may be curious. Like, who is your favorite gospel artist? Especially as you've been doing this documentary, did you change your favorite gospel recording artist, or did you pick up a gospel recording artist that you started to like?
That's a trick question. There's one that is my favorite artist. Unfortunately, again, due to time, he was not featured, and that's Fred Hammond. I feel like Fred Hammond's like my go-to, like if I need just some hype. But I will say, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She really she has a special place in this series for me. I mean, my heart, from doing this series. So I would say she would be in the series. It's Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Actually, I learned more about her in this special. I really did. I admired her more for the narrative that you all shared about her. Even the dualistic piece she had to do between the church and the secular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And she paid a price for that. You know what I mean? She, it was, and throughout the series, you see a lot of people, whether it's Thomas Dorsey, even Mahalia Jackson, there was pushback, Sam Cooke, Kirk Franklin, Andre Crouch, Church of God in Christ. There is that tension with creation. So when you're creating something amazing in the name of God, there's tension. So with people, with the tradition, so with each generation, and hopefully, I believe that we did a good job in doing that in the series, is really just showing that at each period of time, gospel is constantly just evolving and changing, and people are constantly at the forefront, trudging ahead or pushing ahead for that change.
And I'm glad I went into this particular vein because I do want to ask you, with the research you have done, the artists that you were in contact with, and the secular and sacred. What is
Mm-hmm.
your outlook on that? Being a filmmaker, knowing the history from an African American perspective, and even from a business perspective, what is your outlook of it now? The church, gospel artists, that secular and sacred piece.
Well, I think it goes back to in episode 3 where Andre Crouch, um, he pushed back. I talked about, he was in many spaces. It was not just a church. It was in films. It was in pop music. And one of his backup singers who we interviewed was like, his goal is to take the message everywhere. And I think one informs the other.
Hmm.
I hope I'm answering your questions. But I think it's, they feed up, like I said, one informs the other. And with music that is constantly reaching outside the church, that's speaking to the secular. If you look at Maverick City, if you look at what Kirk Franklin was doing, it's outside the church walls. So I think, they're speaking to, they're reaching, I won't say they're speaking to directly, but they're definitely reaching a crowd that's not sitting in the pews, which is important.
You just said something very powerful that I didn't think about. One creates the other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a very profound statement. I'm a musician. And I play, piano and organ, and so from your statement, the demand actually created these other opportunities. And
Yeah,
so it's very interesting as the gospel music grows and grows, it creates a space.
it does. It
It
does. I
creates
mean,
a space.
Dorsey started in the blues. Yeah, Dorsey started with the blues, and he brought the blues in the church.
Mhm.
Mahalia, I mean, she was always keeping the church, but her influences, one of her favorite singers was Bessie Smith. Uh, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, that guitar, rock and roll. I mean, but she had rock and roll at church and she brought it out, she would go back and forth with it. But yeah, it's, it's constantly a revolving door.
And so I do want to thank you for your time and sharing.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything? Oh, when I tell you you are fabulous, and I hope we get
Thank you.
to do some more things with you because this is just a tip of just a tip of her knowledge, a tip of some of her productions. Lady Stacey Holmon is awesome. She's really, really awesome. And so,
Thank you.
for those who have not seen the PBS special Gospel, you can watch it on your cable channel. You also can download the app, which is one thing I did, and you can
Yes,
watch it
PBS.
PBS app, and you can download it, watch it on your app, on your tablet, on your phone, everywhere you go, you can watch it. So as we close, share one item that you want to share with our audience that you want them to know about this project.
Oh gosh. I would say there's always one question people had about, where is gospel still relevant? Where is gospel going to, be? And I do not speak as a scholar. I speak as a filmmaker, a creator. And from doing the series, gospel is always going to be around. Gospel is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. It's constantly about the good news. And as we go into, next year, next 2 years, next few decades, it'll be interesting to see what amazing people are going to come out and bring more of that tension to create some incredible music.
I do again want to thank you for your time, for sharing with us here at
Thank
Believe
you.
Radio. And hopefully we'll be able to get you again on your next projects that you
I
have
would love
coming
that
up.
etymology.
And
Thank
so,
you.
again, thank you for joining Believe Radio. This is your friend, your best friend, hopefully, Adamology. And we are here at Believe Radio. And we thank you again. Tune into our next show. Have a good one.
From the blues to hip hop, African Americans have driven sonic innovation for more than a century. While styles have changed, there's one sound that's remained constant, a source of strength and courage, comfort and wisdom. Gospel.
Let's look at the gospel. Gospel music is soul. Gospel music is R&B. Gospel music is funk. It's hip hop. Gospel music is the full spectrum in terms of its sound of black music and beyond.
Mahalia Jackson, what was special about her voice?
She believed every word she was singing, and she wanted you to believe it.
Preachers have style, right. Gospel singers have style.
Right.
Black style in music and preaching is similar because it allows Black people to believe that they can survive a bit longer. My mother had gone to New Bethel Baptist Church. C.O. Franklin would preach and then Aretha would sing. Oh my God, if you ain't got the spirit, then you dead.
The sermon becomes the song. The song becomes the sermon.
God, we ask that you would reinvigorate somebody.
It's almost as if there's a soundtrack in a church setting.
Amen, brother. That was beautiful. For generations, gospel music and preaching have formed the bedrock of the Black religious experience.
The sound still connects people. The sound still gathers people.
These astonishing art forms, carrying an enduring tradition, continue to evolve. Do you think there will always be gospel music 100 years from now?
I don't see how we can thrive without gospel music.
That's right.
I say it's going to always be there forever.
Listen, as we tell the story of how a people learned to sing the Lord's song in a strange land. This is the powerful story of gospel.
It's very important that we learn our history. Stay tuned, where we're going to dive into the Black church, gospel music, and preaching with this special Black History moment on Believe Radio.